Bounce.
Okay, we're back.
Back again. All right. I'm not even going to go through our slide presentation because we're obviously having some technical issues here. But welcome to everybody who's on the call. Thank you for being here and sticking with us through some of these little problems that we're having. But we are super excited to be here and talk with not only Arctic IT, but a couple of friends that we have who have used the platform from Arctic IT to help solve some enrollment situations. So it's going to be a great session. I always love when we have like real boots on the ground people who have used the product and can really talk through their story and how it's helped them and helped change, the way that they're able to service tribal members. So with that, oh, look it, we're dialing back in. Everyone's coming now. Michigan, Nevada, Nebraska, Alaska, Connecticut, of course, Tim. Yes, I'm super excited to see to get this rolling. So Blake, I'm just going to turn it over to you and we will get rolling.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Michelle.
Hmm.
Appreciate the introduction. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, everyone, for your attendance today. We're thrilled to be here with TribalHub presenting this webinar. My name is Blake Miller with Arctic IT, and I've got some special guests with me who I'll introduce here in just a moment. The topic of this webinar is digitizing tribal enrollment and building a modern, sovereign, and secure data future. So with that, just a quick little introduction. Like I said, my name is Blake. I've been with Arctic IT for about 7 years, working with different tribes and also working in the state and local government space. As the pre-sale solution architect, it's my pleasure to get to work with many amazing tribes and to share the ways technology can benefit them and help them to better serve their members ultimately. And I'm joined by Tim Walker from the Mashantucket Pequot Tribal Nation and Jana Johnson from the Eastern Shawnee Tribe of Oklahoma. They'll be joining us for a discussion in just a little bit here. And at that time, I'll let them introduce themselves in a little more detail and share about what they do in their tribes. But before that, I want to just give a little background on kind of the agenda and what we're going to go through today. So starting out, I'll share a little bit about Arctic IT and why we're here with TribalHub partnering, doing these webinars and sharing our experiences and putting together this discussion. We'll talk about some of the operational challenges that we as a technology company see existing today amongst tribes and also other organizations generally. And then also talk about what it takes to move to the cloud and the potential there for modernizing our technology solutions. And then I'd like to just briefly introduce Tribal Platforms, which is our solution that we've put together as an answer to some of these challenges, a way to bring departments and data together in one modern, secure platform. And then really the main reason we're here is our panel discussion. So at that point, I'll pull in Tim and Jana and would love to get a discussion going with them. I've got some questions for them, and I'm sure you'll find it interesting to hear some of their perspectives and experiences moving to a modern member management solution, and also some of the challenges and lessons learned from that process and ongoing through today. So we're excited to have them together and looking forward to hearing from them in just a little bit here. And then we'll have some time for Q&A as well. So if you've got questions, feel free to plug them into the chat just so we don't lose sight of them. And then once we get to the end of our session, we'll open it up for questions and we can read through the ones in the chat, or you're welcome to come off mute if Zoom lets us. Either way, we'll field those questions and look forward to that. So jumping into it, a little background on Arctic IT. Arctic IT, we are a technology company, but we also see ourselves really as a partner with the tribes that we serve. Some vendors will sell you a license or sell you software and say goodbye. We're on the other end of that spectrum where we'll stay with you in lockstep every step of the way. We see ourselves as a true partner for life, for our customers, for our tribes, and know that when we offer great service and great partnership, then we mutually benefit and are grateful for the many tribes that we do work with today. We have deep roots in the tribal sector. Arctic IT, as a technology company, we focus on solutions for tribal governments and casinos. We have many years of expertise working in the tribal space with over 100 different tribal entities. And we are native owned, 100% native owned. We're owned by Doi Unlimited, which is an Alaska Native corporation. And with that, our proceeds go back to the shareholders of Doyon. So we're a partner with a purpose. The the revenue we bring in goes back into our shareholders, our tribal members in Alaska, in order for us to sponsor things like outreach events, scholarships, education, community networking, professional development, and also cultural preservation. And we appreciate and are grateful for the tribes that join us in that effort. As I mentioned, we've worked with over 100 different tribal nations and entities across the United States, in Alaska, as well as the lower 48. Some of the operational challenges, to get into it here, that we often see as we're working with tribal nations, and these are common though beyond, with other commercial organizations, state and local government entities as well. First and foremost, this is probably the biggest challenge that I see on a recurring basis is the challenge of improving cross-departmental collaboration. Now, maybe you've experienced this in your organization or in your department, where you've got processes that work for you, and maybe at one point in time you needed a certain technology solution to meet a need or to fill a gap, and you went out and purchased a software that works for you. But then other departments within the tribe might have different needs, and at different times have gone out and also procured different software solutions. And the challenge there is, as we become more spread across different software, working with different vendors, managing different licenses and subscriptions, and potentially APIs and integrations and things, it's easy for us to get siloed because there's so many barriers and so much friction in the way of that cross-departmental collaboration that really becomes a challenge. Also just process-based, as we get more heads down into our own process, sometimes it's easy to stay in our bubble, stay in our silo, which causes challenges when we do need to share, when we need to remove some of those blockers to allow for collaboration between departments. Another big one that we see often is the need and the expectation for digital services. There was a time long ago where you could perfectly service your industry and your members with the technology at the time through paper and in-person visits. But with the landscape today, we recognize that a lot of that has changed. And now many individuals, tribal members, want and expect the ability to self-serve through a member portal, for example, or to be able to receive their information digitally, to apply for services digitally. Now, there will still always be individuals who prefer to come into the office or send a paper letter or a paper check, and we still want to accommodate and account for those individuals. But more now than ever, there is a need and an expectation for digital services. Process automation is something that comes into play in almost every facet of tribal government and business operations today. And what we discover continually is that through implementing process automation, we're able to fill a lot of these gaps. I can't tell you how many times I've met with a tribe or organization that says we just don't have enough staff, we just don't have enough people. And if I could hire more people, then we could solve all these problems. And sometimes that is true. But often those gaps can be filled or supplemented by technology. The purpose of process automation is not to replace good people, but it's to supplement those good people. It's to take away some of the tedium and the repetitive menial tasks that they get stuck doing because there's no one else to do it, and open them up to more creative activities so they can use their talents and their skills at their best and highest case. Process automation allows us to cover that tedious area of work and empower our people to be creative and to do good work. And then finally, data sovereignty. As a tribal nation, this is something that's incredibly important, is ensuring that your data is your own. And there have been concerns in the past with putting your data on the cloud or hosting it, because then where does it live? Who owns it? Who can access it, right? You open yourselves potentially to other avenues of entry. But if you keep your data in-house on premise, there's also challenges and risks there, right? With, potential for natural disasters or hardware failure or theft or things like that. So there's a lot of considerations on both sides, and we see these challenges across the landscape and want to speak to some of these today. So as I go through the next few slides, I want you to be a little introspective and consider to yourself if you've had some of these thoughts or if some of this reflects processes that resonate with you. Today, are you going through file cabinets to pull out historical data or even current data for your members or to view other forms or documentation? Or are you scrolling through endless spreadsheets to try to get your member data? Are you searching through spreadsheets? Is that your primary source of truth? Or do you have a legacy or a system today that maybe doesn't quite fully meet your needs for a modern member management solution? I want to talk about what it might take to move to the cloud. And this is a conversation that we've been having for a number of years. And I'm sure some on this call have made that move or in the process of making that move. And some of your solutions are cloud-based now. Others on this call may still be primarily on-premise. So meaning your data and your software is all maintained on servers within a tribal office building. And talk about some of the considerations here of what that might look like moving to the cloud. Now, I mentioned earlier, we're a Alaska Native owned technology company. We're also a Microsoft partner. And one of the reasons that we at Arctic IT have chosen to partner with Microsoft is because of their support for tribes and their assurances to tribes. Now, we've got this data recently from Microsoft that there's 450 roughly tribal tenants in Office 365 and 150 tribal tenants in Azure. What that means is tribes across the United States are flocking to the Microsoft cloud. And I think that's for three main reasons. Number one, because of the security model that Microsoft provides. Now, Microsoft invests some $2 billion a year in security. And with this platform, you gain access to that entire investment, something that a small company like Arctic IT couldn't match on our own. But with the Microsoft Cloud, all of your security is managed through Active Directory or Entra ID. You're able to utilize multi-factor authentication. And you have a robust security model built into the solutions built on top of that cloud for managing security roles, even down to the field level. So you can determine who should have access to what data at any given time. Second item is data availability. If you've ever had challenges managing hardware or networks or servers or VPNs or software updates or upgrades, all of that is handled by Microsoft when we build on their cloud. So they take that availability and push it up to the max. They guarantee some 99.99% uptime for their services. So you know that your data is always available to you. And then finally, number three is that point about data sovereignty. One of the reasons Microsoft is one of the preferred vendors, technology vendors for tribes, as well as the federal government and state and local governments in the United States, is because they respect data sovereignty and they have guardrails in place to ensure that when you host your data as a sovereign nation on the Microsoft cloud, your data is 100% owned by you. Now, talking about that move to the cloud, there could be different scenarios depending on where you're at. Maybe that looks like scanning documents to bring data to a digital platform. Maybe that looks like importing spreadsheets or migrating from a legacy on-premise database application. Whatever it might be, there's different avenues for each tribe because each tribe is in a different spot. And we'll talk about some of that today with our panelists here, what that avenue has looked like for them and what it might look like for you. Now, with that, I want to introduce Arctic IT's solution for this challenge, for these questions that we've talked about, and that is Tribal Platforms. So Tribal Platforms is a suite of applications that Arctic IT has developed for tribal governments built on the Microsoft cloud. So it's really almost a three-way partnership between the tribe, Arctic IT, and Microsoft, who provides the infrastructure and the platform for this. But on top of that infrastructure, what we've done is we've put together a suite of applications taking advantage of the Microsoft infrastructure. So your data for your enrollment solution is available to you. There's mobility anywhere you go, whether that's at home or in the office or on the road. If you have a device with a modern browser, you can access your data. Your data is secure. Your data is owned and controlled by you. And it integrates with all of your other Microsoft applications if you use things like Word or Excel or OneNote or SharePoint or Outlook. All of these tools live in the same Microsoft tenant, the same ecosystem, and integrate with all of our solutions. And that really is part of the bigger objective that Arctic IT has, is bringing data together, where historically it has been in silos and difficult, essentially, especially for central IT to manage when you've got 10 different vendors and 10 different licenses and 10 different environments, to bring that all together into one central platform. And where appropriate, data that should be shared can be shared freely between departments, between organizations. So today we're talking mostly about enrollment, and that'll be the topic of our discussion with our panelists, as they both serve in their respective enrollment departments. But we also have solutions in addition to enrollment for things like family wellness. So for managing cases for civil services or health services in a tribe. We have a community portal for members to access community events, to apply for services, to make payments, all online through a secure portal. We have a solution for tribal court to manage court cases, hearings. We have a distribution payment solution to manage per cap payments, general welfare payments, things of that nature. A housing solution for tribes that manage properties or provide housing assistance for their members, and also an education solution for tribes that manage schools or daycares, teachers, staff, students, classes, and things of that nature. In addition to these solutions here on the screen, we've also implemented solutions for other tribes, including things like grant management, loan management, titles and tags, permits, elections, and others. And we're always expanding our offerings because we recognize that each tribe is different and has different needs, but we see a lot of commonalities, and we want to build a platform that can accommodate these different departments and different needs. Just to touch briefly on our enrollment solution, specifically, which will be the topic of our discussion today. Our enrollment solution is a comprehensive member management solution used by enrollment departments across the country today. We have ancestry reporting, so viewing lineage, ancestry, things like that. We have the ability to calculate blood quantum and track that. Our solution also comes with an ID card designer and printer. Your member data is kept confidential. You can also track things like your households, your relationships, so your parent-child, sibling relationships, and all that plays into your reporting. And this integrates with all of the other tribal platforms applications as well. The last item I'll mention as an appendage to this is that community portal, which we talked about a little bit. We're seeing more and more a desire for some sort of member-facing portal or page or website, so that tribes can offer those digital services, can have more real-time communication, and can receive requests, applications, payments, whatever it might be, through that digital channel. So we're seeing a lot more buzz around portal. And I've in conversations I've had at some recent events and TribalHub events as well, this has been a hot topic. So with that said, I want to make sure we have enough time to bring our panelists here. I'm incredibly grateful for both Tim and Jana for joining us, and want to give them a moment here to introduce themselves. So maybe we'll start with Tim and then go to Jana. And if you wouldn't mind, Tim and Jana, just take a minute and introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you, what you do, and a little bit about your tribe, if you wouldn't mind as well. We'd appreciate it.
Sure.
Tim.
So, we Ikisuk. Good afternoon. We are located in southeastern Connecticut. Mashantucket runs the Foxwoods Resort Casino, and we're known as the Fox People. I am the IT manager that's in charge of all the government departments. So, our public safety, healthcare, enrollment, the tribal council, pretty much everything. It's 90 departments that me and my two underlings oversee. And then the casino has its own IT group that maintains it. I've been in this position for 15 years now, and I've been very happy with the rollout of Arctic IT's solution. It's been helping us kind of shrink our stack and bring different departments together. So,
Well, thank you, Tim. Jana, are you there? Can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we
yes.
can. Excellent.
Hey, okay. Is it loud enough? So
Yeah,
I'm
sounds
Jana
great.
Johnson. Okay, I'm Jana Johnson. I'm the Director of Health and Social Services for the Eastern Shawnee Tribe. We're located in Northeast Oklahoma. We're actually one of 3 Shawnee tribes in Oklahoma. Tim has a longer background than I do. I'm new to this department. I've been here 2 years. And when I started, Arctic was, a conversation and in the process of being built to meet our needs. So I've grown with it and learned a lot. We're unique in the fact that within my department, we have vital statistics, a benefit reimbursement program, and tribal tags. And across the hall, we have education, social services, specialized services, CCDF, and ICW, and they are all now working to develop programs within Arctic. And then I also work with the elections board, and we utilize the program for that as well. We're kind of multifaceted when it comes to this, and we've started utilizing and working on developing the portal, and it has kind of blossomed into a need for centralized information within our tribe. It's been a very wonderful process and a very good learning process for us, and especially me. So I'm grateful. It's a great program.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Tim and Jana. It's great to have different perspectives too, with Tim and Jana coming from different tribes to different sizes. As Tim mentioned, comes from an IT background. Jana comes from education and has done a lot of other things. So it's neat to get different perspectives. One of the things that I love about attending events and also these webinars is you get to learn from others that have different backgrounds, different experiences, different perspectives. One of the neat things too for me has been learning about how different tribes do enrollment and what that looks like in different tribes. So I'd love to hear from maybe Jana first and then Tim about what enrolling new members looks like in your tribe today. Do you have people applying for membership in the tribe? What does that look like today for each of you?
For us, we do. We actually are getting quite a few. I would say we have 4 or 5 every week, and our tribal members are realizing the value and the importance of continuing that lineage culturally and traditionally. So we have a lot of young people coming in, new babies. We have several that have started coming back to the tribe and enrolling. The difference for us, I would say the big thing that I notice is we are lineal and we cannot have a gap in lineage of enrollment. We're based off our 38 roll, and hypothetically, if your parent did not enroll and they've deceased, then you cannot enroll in the tribe. So you have to have continuation of lineal enrollment. And that's been very interesting when you research and get everybody ready for enrollment. I will say the one thing that I have learned through this, the person that I took their position, she was here 33 years. She started this department. She made many changes, and then now we're pushed, and I use that politely, pushed to becoming more technological in what we do in this department. And it's opened up the door to allow us to see the importance of data, tracking, building family relationships, building family trees. And all of that has to be done with our enrollment. So it really gives us accessibility to a lot.
Certainly. What about for you, Tim? What does enrollment look like in your tribe today? I know you've told me some interesting things about how your tribe has grown in years past.
We've grown exponentially, partially because of the success of the casino, and that draw of money brings everybody out of the woodwork. We get a lot of applications on a weekly basis. Most of them are invalid, but it's a lot of people trying to throw the dice to see if they can get in. We also follow a direct lineal descent. You have to trace back to two censuses and our 1996 rolls. We actually reset to a new base roll in 96. So if you can trace your descent back to there, something Jana mentioned that we've been somewhat struggling with is we've had a couple of our younger tribal members pass away before they were able to get their families enrolled. And we haven't restricted it to the direction that Jen was mentioning that Shawnee has, but we've had to look at options like DNA as a verifier to be able to make that gap fit. And that's been a bit of a political hot potato because some of our tribal members want the DNA testing, some of them don't. So it's an interesting struggle that we've been fighting with for the last 10 years now, to try to figure out how to use modern technology to verify the words of the Constitution as to who is actually a member. So that's interesting. As you mentioned, the demographics. We had, I believe it was 183 adult members at our recognition in 83. We are now over 1,200. So we've had a huge baby boom. We've got another 300 that we're expecting in the next 1 or 2 years. So it's been growing extremely fast.
So fascinating. And you both alluded to technology in your comments and how, because the technological landscape, you're making changes or seeing the need to make changes. So I'd love to hear from each of you, maybe starting with Tim. Ultimately, what led you to decide to move to a modern member management tool? Or if it was your predecessor, what led them or the tribe to kind of make that jump at the end of the day?
So for us, we were relying on a very old, outdated access database to keep the member roll. We far exceeded its maximum record limit, which surprisingly it let us keep doing. But that was a ticking time bomb for us. We knew it was going to blow up at some point. Finding somebody who actually understands how access works these days is getting really difficult to do. So we were hunting for a reliable service. Our clerk handles all of the authentication for our membership. So everything from our retail systems that want to give a percentage discount to our members when they swipe their cards, all of that ended up hitting the clerk. And it was a lot of struggles that they're running through with the untechnical systems they were using for tracking everybody. So that was the big impetus. We wanted to make sure that we had a central database that identified who was a legitimate member. That now ties into those rewards and discount systems throughout the tribe, and as well as all of our other departments that we're now looking at running modules for education, finance, etc. Having that central database of who is eligible for the services has been a real big help for us.
Definitely, yeah. What about for you, Jana? I know you said your predecessor was the one that kind of kicked off the project initially, but for the tribe, what was the impetus to move?
I think there's a multitude of things really. We have, you're getting generationally, we're more technologically, instant gratification, wanting things to happen, more expediently. And tribal members and I was like kind of piggyback off what Tim said, is we have a member benefits program. We have a reimbursement program, and in the need to have the turnaround rate was so important that this program really does that capacity for us. And with that, I think because that was the first need, then we go into the vital statistics enrollment side, and they piggyback off of each other. But I think that was our big push. And then we realized going into this what it could look like for vital statistics, tags, et cetera. Enrollment drives everything. Our vital statistics drives the data in our tribe. And so we couldn't complete benefits appropriately without having vital statistics, aligned to that and function, parallel to it. I think that, the efficiency and the timeliness of turning around, constitutionally, we have to turn over benefits within 30 days. And we were inundated. And when I got here, we were running about 45 days. And I can proudly say in the last 8 months, we're functioning in anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks. So that just using this program and having the data we need has made it so much better.
Yeah, that's incredible. Now, I recognize that with the wins and the good, there's also challenges along the way, right? Anyone that tells you that upgrading software or migrating to a new software solution is fast and easy and quick and everyone's going to adopt it and love it right away is probably not telling you the whole story. So I'd love to hear from each of you, maybe starting with Jana. What were some of the challenges that you or the tribe or the organization had to overcome when implementing this new solution, or even still today, what are some of the challenges you have with making that move?
I think the biggest thing for us was our data, our tribal membership information. We went from everything to being on paper to a spreadsheet, and we had a program. We went to a different program, and it was not updated. There was text initiated and comment sections, and then we roll into Arctic. So we have some gaps in data, and that has been really difficult, trying to find the pieces and put them in appropriately. And that's just the nature of the beast when you go into that. We still are working on that. I think in that negative, it's a positive as well. You said, my background is education. Well, it was compliance for special education. So paperwork is very important. And are we protecting our paperwork appropriately? Are we giving information out to the correct people? Are we paying the correct people? All that lines up with that. And we're still finding processes. Just last night, I spoke to BC about a process, and we're writing a policy to make that happen. And we would not have done that or caught that without this program. And that's being honest. So with all the things we find that are negative, it's been a positive in the same breath.
Yeah, sometimes that's what it takes to expose kind of where the gaps are, the holes are in the data. You need something to surface it. Yeah, it's like you said, it's a negative because you find stuff that's wrong, but it's a positive because now you know about it and now you can address it. But certainly
right.
a challenge to get your data clean, right? Yeah. What about for you, Tim? What are some of the biggest challenges that you had to overcome in making this transition or are still dealing with today?
Well, the biggest challenge we ran into actually had to do with the fact that we started things before we got connected to IT or Arctic IT. We discovered as we were trying to roll this system out that Microsoft loves to change what they label things, and that they have a corporate silo and a tribal silo. And once you've entered one, then it's really hard to shift things from one side to the other. So we would have been better off just waiting until we were working directly with Arctic IT, but that actually ended up delaying us almost 8 months. We were just kind of stuck in the water trying to figure out where we were going on before we just cut tail and decided that we'd restart to get through things. So a lot of it's just, pre-planning, figuring out where things are supposed to be. Since we've implemented, the biggest challenge we've run into is actually getting our users to adopt. Our young adults, they want to be able to just click something and make it happen. If you have to give them 2 pages of information on how to connect, you're not getting them to pay attention to you. So the adoption of our portal has been the biggest challenge we've run into so far. And that thankfully is snowballing. As I get people connected to it, word of mouth, they end up spreading it through the rest of their family, and next thing I know, I'm getting inundated with people who are trying to make sure that they can connect and get information that they've been looking for. So it's slowly moving forward, but that's more a societal issue than a technology issue. But it's something to understand. We ended up running, I believe it was almost a dozen tribal meetings, setting up booths as people come into the various meetings, just announcing things to try to get everybody aware of the fact that this was coming forward and set up for it. So we've done just about everything other than drag people in kicking and screaming. So we're trying to figure out how to make it work better. But the application itself has been working great. I actually have the problem of too many of my departments want to jump onto this because of the common database. So we've had to kind of slow down and queue up each of these different groups. So we're making sure everything fits together as it's supposed to.
Yeah,
Can I
I
can I
appreciate.
add something?
Yeah, please, Jana.
So, with utilizing this portal, everything that Tim says is kind of what we've gone through as well, having people sign up. What does that look like? And, any kind of word of advice I could give is make sure your tribal members know what they need to get onto the portal. I cannot tell you how many tribal members have signed up and never used their tribal ID, which, there's all kinds of things that go awry with that happening. And I think it's just setting it up and informing them to this is what you need, this is why you need it. We actually have had BC attach the agenda to the portal now, and our monthly budgeting report. Portal, and after I've had 2 meetings in the last 2 days, is going to be the hub of information for us as a tribe. So I think that the main thing, in hindsight, if I would have been involved up front, would have been making sure your tribal member data is correct. You have current emails, you have current phone numbers, current addresses, because they have to log in with an email. And if it's not what we have on file, I don't think they should be able to move forward. They need to update with us because vital statistics holds the data for everyone. It's the base. So we have to figure out a way to make that happen. So my best advice is make sure you work really hard to get everybody on board with updating. We've kind of faltered. Now we're doing a lot of direct deposits. And I think because they're getting their reimbursement check, it doesn't really matter if we have an address, or it doesn't really matter if we have a correct email. And so we're going to have to make some changes to help with that. That's been a hindrance for us.
Yeah.
But it's not, you can fix it. It's just a matter of getting everybody on board. This is what they need to move forward to access this information.
Yeah, definitely. And we've heard some creative ideas in chatting with Jana and Tim and also other tribes about how they've gotten people adopting the new solutions, whether that's giveaways or tying certain benefits to ensuring data accuracy. So members are incentivized, right, to update their email address or their address when they move, or their phone number, or connect to the portal to opt in for whatever it might be. So we've seen a lot of creativity, and that helps. And Tim makes a great point that it's sometimes the technology seems like you got the right technology, but there's things around it, right? The human element that we still need to account for too, which is it can feel separate, but there's so much overlap, and it's closely related to the success of our technology, that adoption piece. So appreciate that perspective as well. Since we talked about this a little bit, but since transitioning to tribal platforms, what impact has this made on your enrollment department's day-to-day operations? Maybe let's start with Jana. What you mentioned some of this with the more real-time data, but what are some of the impacts you've seen, positive benefits of this solution for your enrollment's
Oh,
day-to-day
I
activities?
think that our enrollment process is more fluid. It's much faster. We're getting, we send our stuff to BC every 2 weeks, and we are having a quicker turnaround. We're getting the enrollment, process much faster. And then just the actual processing, enrolling them into the system, printing their tribal ID. They leave our office with their original birth certificate, a letter from chief, and their tribal ID, and we could just send that as a packet, where before it was kind of back and forth and we had to stop, and it just makes it so much more fluid, and the research capacities are there. Yes, we have to do some data, migration, and we're going to have to do some things manually to be able to do it better, but it just has increased it. I will say it is also, and I think, and I mentioned this when we talked before, and I had heard Tim speak before, when I was in Arizona and listened to the other tribes that were there, it definitely makes you look at, are we collecting data appropriately for enrollment? And we're going to have to revamp our application because of the capabilities that Arctic has to store data. We really need to be more, forward thinking about our application. Like, what do we need? And making sure we're not only meeting our constitutional guidelines, but we're assessing the capability of our tribal database and our historical records, and that's going to give that to us.
Yeah, that's a great call out. That the flexibility of the system too is an important element, because as you use it more, you realize kind of what you need to take the next step, the next evolution. Every tribe is different, so it's nice to have a platform that can be extended and customized and built out in different ways to meet those unique scenarios or needs, or just as we learn more over time.
It makes you evaluate your process. Are we doing this to the best of our ability? Is it most fluid? Are we missing data that we could have? And that's across the board for us. That's whether it's tribal tags or our benefits program. It still makes us stop, and about every, couple of months, we sit down and have a conversation of what would we like Arctic to do for us? How's it working? What do we need? How can we make this process better? And a lot of it is revamping our forms, putting those on the portal. It really makes you evaluate your program, which is a good thing. You don't get stagnant. You don't have the capacity to get stagnant.
Yeah, I love that, and I can speak from the partner standpoint. It's so nice to have people like Jana and Tim that are invested in the success of the technology and that want to improve it. Those are the people that really make great strides in advancing their organizations. So I love that. What about for you, Tim? Since transitioning to tribal platforms, what impact has it had on day-to-day enrollment activities?
So it's actually made their life a little bit easy, which, I'm going to kind of catch something from Daniel Fletcher, just to ask a question that'll fit into this as well. It's freed up their time to be able to do things like scan all the documents into the system so that it's running through. So we were able to convert our 3 databases that the clerk had put together into Arctic IT, and it took a little bit of work to make sure that all the records were correct, and we were tying the correct information to the correct people. Once we got through that obstacle, we now have this robust system that allows us to expand what our clerk has been tracking. The clerk was tracking mostly just the information necessary for the tribal council to be able to send mailings out to members. So there were some information about birth, death dates, marriages, connections, but our old system didn't track those connections properly. So it might list that I have a wife and hopefully that, her name and her information, but she didn't have her own record in the old system. So it didn't tie everybody together on a genealogical basis. which is one of the requirements that we have for filing your application to become a member, is you actually have to fill out your full genealogy chart to show how you trace back to one of the original lines. So everybody had to recreate that every single time by hand. We can now print one out where we know what the line is and can compare it to what they gave us and make sure that it's accurate and that they didn't invent somebody that doesn't exist. So,
Right.
but now that they've not had to answer questions as much, the reports that Arctic can provide for us allows them to respond very quickly to different requests through. It's just given our three clerks a lot more time to be able to go back and scan the records. One of the things that I love about the Arctic system, another hat that I wear, is I'm the head of our honor guard. And we didn't have actually we still don't, we're still working on it, an accurate listing of who's a veteran. And, Arctic allows us to go back, scan in the DD-214s so we know who has the proper list of accolades and eligibility. So that has been kind of the direction we've been going on, is Arctic has been able to expand what the clerk is tracking for us. And as that is slowly leaking out to other departments to find out that we have this information, it's been kind of snowballing the acceptance of what it is we're doing.
Oh, that's great.
To piggyback on that, with that situation, you're talking about collecting data and who's a veteran, et cetera. One of the things that has helped me tremendously with this program is when I get a request from a tribal officer in our area, whether it's county, state, federal, I'll get a phone call or an email, and I can respond to them, if I catch it at the right time via email. They'll have an answer quickly, very quickly. Where in the past we'd have to stop, we'd have to go look, we'd have to pull a file, we'd have to check family, and this just makes it, especially if I get the email immediately, I can turn around and just stop what I'm doing, go look it up, and turn around and respond to them, whether that person is a tribal member or not. And they've been very appreciative of that. They've commented through phone calls that, the turnaround for that has helped them. We do the same thing with ICW. I'll get a request, whether a child is a tribal member or not, that it has a court case, et cetera, and it allows me to look at the family tree to see if they're eligible or if they're historically an Eastern Shawnee and just not enrolled, and write a letter, turn around, and get it back to the court system very quickly. So those are some things that are very impactful that you really don't think about, outside of the enrollment component. And collecting data for us as far as grants, et cetera, the capacity of doing this and building reports is just wonderful. And we're trying to start collecting data with education, is what tribal members have received what degrees, and what does that look like? And if they've used our education program, what did they go on and do with that? So there's just a plethora of things that you can develop into a program. It just depends on what you need, because it has that capacity.
Yeah, having the data at your fingertips and not hidden away in some filing cabinet or on some spreadsheet or someone's computer is a great asset. Well, I know we're
jump in, Blake, real
yeah,
quick
Michelle.
to say that I got two other questions also in the Q&A in addition to the one on here. So I'm not sure if you could see that or if you wanted me to I just didn't make sure. I want to make sure we didn't miss them.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I had just maybe before we jump to the Q&A, anything else from Tim or Jana that you'd like to share as far as advice or lessons learned from this process as your tribe is still in the the works moving to modernize your solutions? Any advice or lessons learned you'd like to share that we haven't talked about yet?
I think Jana mentioned it earlier. As you're looking at this, you need to organize. Know what your data is, know what you need your data to be, start assembling it together, because that's the first thing Arctic's going to ask you when they get online is, okay, what forms do you use? What information do you need?
Or any vendor, right?
any vendor.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that was one of the biggest things that I run into, is trying to make sure that the data is actually together and finding out what is actually being used. As I mentioned, I manage 90 departments, and there's 56 applications that I'm aware of that we're using. But on a daily basis, I may find, other ones that somebody's rolled up on their own and started using. So you never know what it is that you're running into for your departments. So that's the biggest thing for me, is making sure you got the right data, and that's been our biggest draw for it, is that centralized database.
That was great advice.
Yeah. For me, I guess probably because I wasn't involved in the front side of it coming in, it took me a little bit, like I said, to get my feet under me to really look at what we needed. And I think we've all kind of said the same thing, is knowing what you want, knowing how you're going to utilize it, or at least have an idea of where you want to start and what that looks like. But also be willing to be flexible within the program, because for me, like I said before, when we visited, what we looked at as family number and what we looked at as, relationships and households, they were used differently before. So we were struggling with that communication component. Family number is very important, and we have to have that. But what we had to learn is to separate that household is strictly a data collector for information. It has nothing to do with your family number. It has nothing to do with your relationship or your family tree. For us, household is how we collect data for grants, how we pay our benefits, who lives with whom. And so those were some transitions that were hard. So I think communicating the verbiage of your program, in the beginning, and then being able to have those conversations of, I don't think I understand, why the program is set up this way. Don't be afraid to ask. I mean, Blake will tell you, I ask lots of questions because I didn't understand why it was set up that way. And they were very willing to make tweets and explain. And so I would say, ask the question, be prepared and ask the questions. And don't be afraid to say, this isn't working. This isn't how we need this to work. Or, this is repetitive. Don't be afraid. Ask the questions, and get out there. But data, if I had my choice, looking back, I would have set up, and we only did the enrollment vital stats site first, before we did anything else. That way our data is correct, everything's there. So when we moved on to the other things, they wouldn't have been missing data as well. Phone numbers, family members, etc. So that would have been, wave the wand, and that would have been something I would have wished for. But we're fixing it. We're doing well. So.
Yeah. No, thank you. That's fantastic advice. And I'll add to that, if you feel like you're not ready yet, we'd still love to have a conversation with you. There's a lot of great partners out there, and Arctic IT would be more than happy to engage if you have any questions or want to get the ball rolling, or just want to throw ideas around about what it might take to get to the next step in your own member management solution modernization. We did have one little poll we wanted to gauge the room, so I don't know if Michelle, you could throw that up, and then we can jump to those other questions.
Yeah, I'll put that up right now. So one of the questions that was asked was, how does your system verify if an applicant is already a member of another tribe?
We do it by picking up the phone and sending a letter. It does not, they don't talk cross-tribal. And we'll get letters from other tribal members asking if they're a member, and we allow dual enrollment. Some tribes don't. In our area, we pretty well know who doesn't. But the thing is, with having dual enrollment, and this is another thing that would be nice if you could access, as well as that they are dual enrolled, because they cannot use benefits out of both tribes. So it's still back to old school. Pick up the phone and make a phone call or send a letter.
Another question is the data displayed on an internal SharePoint site?
We do not. I mean, the vital statistic component of it is names, addresses, etc. But on my end, I will only allow certain people to have view access only they don't have access to specific things. So there's a good controlling mechanism there. Just like ICW, they have information that I can't see. So confidentiality and security is works well.
Yeah.
And I can share too. Oh, go ahead, Tim.
One of the things I like about the system is the security on it. So, I'm an IT manager, so I don't have any ability to actually be able to see the record information unless I log into the portal, and then I can see my own record because I'm a member. I love that functionality because it's one of our closest, most important bits of information. So the fact that the security will lock us down to where we have to grant somebody the permission to be able to see information is one of the things I love about the system. So
Yeah, you have a lot of control over that. Just to make a comment, you can add other tribal affiliations too in the solution if you desire. You can track that. If you don't, then that's fine as well. But there are places to enter information about other tribal affiliations if they're a member of multiple tribes. And the data primarily is stored in a relational database, but you can also store documents and data in SharePoint as well. But your data doesn't have to live in SharePoint. And by default, it lives in a relational database. I saw one more question in the chat about, can the system make and issue real secure IDs? The solution that we provide does not do real IDs. It does more generic tribal IDs, but we work with other organizations that implement that. So we have done integrations with third parties that can secure those so that your data can be passed directly through a secure channel to that third party that can issue and print those real IDs. So interconnected, yes.
Well, we have come up on our time. We're 1 minute over. So thanks for everybody for sticking with us. Blake, Jana, Tim, thank you so much for sharing this information. It was very informative, and I love when we can do these fireside chats and people can really get to know boots on the ground, who's using this, and what are you using it for, and ask those questions. So thank you so much to you guys for being here today. Everybody on the call, you will receive an email tomorrow with a copy to this recording. So feel free to go in there and share it with anybody on your team who maybe couldn't make it today. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to us at contact@tribalhub.com. We will make sure to put you in touch with Blake or Jana or Tim if you have any questions for them too. And so at this, I guess I would like to say thank you again, and everyone have a great afternoon.
thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim, Jana, and Michelle, TribalHub.
Thank you.
Thank you all. We'll see you.
See you guys later.
Appreciate it. Bye.